So despite all that you already had, I think one of the most prominent things in living in a monastery would be discipline. Did that come easily for you?
Discipline was easy. Up early at 4:45 in the morning, clean up, meditate, mass, study. All of it was wonderful except one thing every day. There was only one moment every day that lasted about 15 to 20 minutes every day that was hard on me, and that was 4:45 in the morning. Because I'm not a morning person, never was. And getting up at that hour in pitch black, cold, because the monastery was cold, was hard. And by the time 15 or 20 minutes passed, I had awakened completely and was ready to go. So it was that. But discipline was easy.
I've heard you refer to things like sleeping on the ground with no blankets and no pillow, and wearing a bracelet of needles. That sounds a lot like suffering. What was the importance of that?
In the monastic life, historically, there have been aids and helpers that the monks have used to generate discipline, to help them become more conscious, raise consciousness in ways that were ancient, not like more modern ways we're using today, that I use in psychology, applied psychology to students that I have and clients that I have. Then it was more material aids. And sleeping in the cold or sleeping on the floor were ways to enhance awareness, to build awareness and raise consciousness, so that instead of operating as people do, as I am aware people do, out of their subconscious mind mostly, and some even unconscious, rarely ever rising to the level of a conscious thought. The monastic life is one in which there is an attempt, and those aids are there to become more conscious and stay more conscious. There are many techniques that are used, like one of them is called the good intention, to make a intention of what your purpose is on this planet and at this moment several times a day, maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 times a day, to bring yourself conscious. And so there are aids that were uncomfortable and even painful that monks could use in order to bring that consciousness, raise that consciousness, in order to raise that consciousness.
How did you feel? How did that make you feel?
Being more conscious, it was wonderful. The cost was not that bad. Being cold keeps a person aware of the cold. So there's a consciousness raising there. There's an increased consciousness, and it's hard to operate out of subconscious mind. And that consciousness then rides on or can be attached to for example, the cold. If you're cold and shivering, you can be very, very aware of it because it's distracting you, it's disturbing. And so you can become very, very aware of the moment, present moment. You'll recognize today traces of that, very minor traces of that, in some of the meditation instruction that you hear meditation scholars talking about. Mindfulness meditation, discursive meditation, where you actually are staying aware, being present. That's the purpose behind meditation. And that 1 to 2 hours of meditation that we did every day was another discipline, effortful discipline, in order to stay conscious and raise consciousness, with an eye to understanding more completely the meaning of life.
I've heard you talk a lot about the chapter of faults. Can you expand on that?
One of the ways to foster growth and root out flaws and faults and even vices is to admit them, to acknowledge them and admit them. And then to decide to do something about them. And then to actually make an effort to do so. The monks are well aware of that. The monastic life is ancient. It's probably the most ancient thing that we have on the planet in terms of seeking knowledge. And so the chapter of faults was a way to gather together in a chapter room with other young monks or any age monks, and for each one to acknowledge before the entire group a recognized, known fault or flaw or error or mistake, and acknowledge it without prejudice, to be honest about it, be truthful. In response, not another monk has a word to say about it. Nothing. No reprimand, no penance, no disorder, nothing. Simply listening to the flaw or the fault. And I'm jealous of Father so-and-so because he blah, blah, blah. To admit the fault is another way of raising consciousness and activating more of the day to be a better person.
It sounds like you loved the monastery.
It did. It taught me the monastic life, the way of life, and the teachers taught me so many things about life that I was rich beyond the gold fields in California, so rich that I could give a lot of what I had then away, the knowledge. And the wisdom different than knowledge, in that wisdom understands information and knowledge at a deeper level, insightfully so. So that's why today wisdom principles are important to me, and wisdom knowledge is important, and why I disseminate them and teach them to people, how to use them in their life to become better people and therefore happier